Andrew Clyde, Congressman, 9th District Republican, Georgia. I want to start off, Congressman, if I can, I want to give a shout out to your comms director, Madeline Corso. Great hire, great lady, one of the most effective people we deal with. And you sent a press release out yesterday titled "Representative Clyde Demands Apology from VA for Politically Motivated Lie." Now, I get probably 50 of these, 25 to 50 a day from all over the nation. And I opened that up and read it, and it was so well written because of the headline and very compelling stuff. So big shout out to Madeline because that's when you have a staff like that, you know you're going to be successful. So I just want to mention that. So you sent a letter out yesterday demanding an apology from the VA for a politically motivated lie. Give us the details of that, sir.
Well, thank you. When Secretary McDonough comes out and says that the Limit, Save, Grow Act will end up with a 22% reduction in the budget for the Veterans Administration, and it will result in tremendous cuts to benefits, severe benefits to veterans. That's just a bold-faced lie. It's fear-mongering. It's threatening services to veterans, where nowhere in the Limit, Save, Grow Act is there any reference to veterans at all in any budget cuts whatsoever. So it's an absolute falsehood. It's a very despicable thing that the Secretary has done in generating fear among veterans. And honestly, as a veteran myself, a combat veteran, I take this personally because our nation is going to protect and serve our veterans as they protected and served us as a nation. And, to do this sort of thing is really low. And honestly, the Secretary, after he retracts this and apologizes, I think the Secretary should consider stepping down and resigning, because what he has done is just is despicable.
Well, basically, he lied for political reasons, and I'm very happy that you called him out, and it was just not a call out. I mean, you called him right on the carpet for it, and he still haven't responded to it. You got a bunch of signatures. The guy's a liar. We first got wind of this. I had Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, Virginia Beach, District 2, Virginia, on Monday, who is a combat veteran, equally outraged by what happened. That was the first time we got wind of it. Now, you couple this with Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, going around on Wednesday telling news outlets that Social Security checks weren't going to come. That comes from a separate fund. That is a blatant lie. So why are they lying to the American people in such an absolute blatant way?
Well, yeah, this is typical of the Biden policies of putting their agenda first and Americans last. Here you have the Secretary, putting veterans last, putting their policy first and veterans last. On the border, you have the Biden administration putting aliens first and Americans last. And now you have Janet Yellen, all right, putting fear first and then, senior citizens last. I mean, Social Security is direct funding. That's mandatory funding. This budget or this debt ceiling has nothing to do with mandatory funding, with cuts in mandatory funding. It's all discretionary funding. So Janet Yellen, again, is lying. A perfect example of the Biden administration putting lies first and Americans last. And it's this is not what Americans deserve. Americans deserve the truth, and that's what they're going to get from us.
In a Wall Street Journal survey that came out 2 days ago, 50% of Americans, this is 50%, doesn't matter what party you're with, over 50% of Americans said the spending had to stop, that it was putting their lives in jeopardy. You have a bill, you have a plan that you've submitted to the Senate that's there, that they could sign right now and avert this entire so-called crisis. Why aren't they acting on it?
I think, again, this is the policy of the Biden administration. They want to play chicken. And they want to see who's going to blink first, and we're going to hold the line. We have passed an exceptionally good response to the debt ceiling. We have addressed it. The Limit, Save, Grow Act, it took a lot of negotiation among Republicans to put this together. The Senate has no plan. The president has no plan. This is the right plan for America. And so they need to get on board with this plan. The president needs to agree to sign it. The Senate needs to pass it in the Senate. And this is the plan that is going to prevent default, any sort of default in our nation. And it's going to maintain our bond ratings and all of our financial markets and all the good things in America. This plan will preserve. So the president simply has to get on board.
So what happens if they continue to say no negotiation, clean debt ceiling, we're not going to budge on it, we don't want your bill, we're not going to cut anything, even though the cuts simply go back to pre-pandemic levels, right? What happens in that instance?
Well, the cuts go back to literally 5 months ago for FY22, because that's the top line is FY22. And honestly, John, I prefer to call it a blind debt ceiling, what they want, not a clean one, because truly it takes us down the path where we don't know where we're going. If all we do is continue to raise the debt ceiling with no constraints whatsoever, because it's fiscal spending. I mean, it's federal spending that has been causing this 40-year high inflation that we've been enduring for the last year or two. And that has to stop. And there has to be a plan to do that. And simply raising the debt ceiling, without any responsible financial reforms is irresponsible. And the Americans know that. The American people know that. And which is why you see they're in favor of spending cuts. They're not in favor of a blind debt ceiling increase. But I think President Biden is going to push this to the very brink to see if we will fold. We will not fold. We will hold the line. We will hold and we will hold, because this plan is the right plan for the American people.
It really is. And I think so many members of Congress that I've had on my show, we basically ask them the same question and we're getting the same answer, is they're not going to bend. Because you have a plan. I mean, all they have to do is pass that plan, and everything is fine. But they're not going to do it because they want the 87,000 IRS agents harassing small businesses so they can weaponize them. They want the new $10 billion FBI building that they don't need so they can reward the deep state. So all the things they need that has no impact on the average American, instead of making their life more miserable. Let's get to the invasion of their southern border. Last night, a judge gave a 2-week stay on Mayorkas's plan to just let people in on the street, no paperwork, anything. What happens now, sir?
Well, yesterday we also passed H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act. And, this bill now goes over to the Senate. If the Senate would pass the same bill, send it to the president, and the president would sign it, that would take care of the issues at the southern border. Because what it does is it restarts the border wall that President Trump began, and actually it will finish the border wall that the President Trump began. And then you have the opportunity in there to address the issues of asylum and correct those issues. And then you have the catch and release is gone. And if people want asylum, they have to remain in Mexico, the MPP program. I mean, it supports the Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection. It puts more technology on the border so we can catch those people that are trying to go over the wall that is there. I mean, this is the strongest border plan, border legislation that we have seen literally in my lifetime. And this will protect our southern and northern borders, by the way, because we have seen time after time, and you called it an invasion. I would absolutely agree that it's an invasion. It's an invasion of illegals, and it's an invasion of deadly drugs like fentanyl. I mean, just this year, this fiscal year, FY23, we have seen 14,000 pounds of fentanyl come across the border, which is enough fentanyl to kill every American citizen multiple times over. And if this trend continues, it's going to double the amount of fentanyl that came in last year in FY22. So this is a crisis. It's a catastrophe at the southern border right now. I'm thankful for what the judge did, but what really needs to happen is the Senate needs to pick up H.R. 2, and it needs to pass it, and President Biden needs to sign it. That will fix the issues on the southern border, the crisis on the southern
Congressman
border.
Clyde, people want to follow you on social media. Where do they go?
They go to clyde.house.gov to our website. They can go to Rep. Clyde on Twitter, Rep. Clyde on Getter, and Facebook.
Representative Clyde, thank you.